Hello, and welcome to Off the Field and Screens, the Detroit Way, a Detroit sports podcast. I'm your host, Chad Marriott, and after a little time off, we're back in action. And some things have changed, but a lot still feels the same. I want to start with the Tigers this week, just to quickly get that out of the way. They made a few additions. Kenley Jansen, the closer, approaching 500 career saves. I'm probably going to do that with the Tigers. I know the the stuff is there, obviously. He's a little older, so there's a little bit of a concern. But with Jansen, one of the big stories popping up is that the Tigers, A.J. Hinch, usually doesn't like to have like a closer, one guy that's doing the closing job. Maybe that's going to change. Perhaps not. I think Vest and Finnegan will both also get save opportunities. With them bringing Kyle Finnegan back. Another move. Glad to see. So I think this is more geared towards the postseason where, as you've seen, if you've watched the Tigers the last couple of years or watched postseason baseball, a lot of times there are different guys that have to pitch in these very high leverage situations, and it's not going to hurt the Tigers to have three players that can do that. So I don't view this as a regular season. Like, this is a move geared towards the postseason. Somebody that can get 3 outs, and having 3 guys that can do that. Maybe ego problem, whatever. But as far as the team goes, if you're saying you want them to build towards winning in the postseason, that's what this is. Now, Drew Anderson is another Scott Harris era project. He was pitching, was it in the KBO or the Japanese league? Regardless, it seems like he's kind of ticked up his fastball a little bit. A 1-year deal, so long term it's not going to hurt them. You could see this working out really well. The Tigers historically in this era with Chris Fetter as the pitching coach have done a really good job at taking players that are kind of like middle tier and elevating their game. Look at Michael Lorenzen is probably the best example, but even we've seen Casey Mize improve massively since that change was made. So we'll see. This is a TBD. I think it could work out. I think if it's the only starting pitching they add, the criticism will be heavy. But we'll see with that rotation, because I'm assuming, just to touch on this, I'm assuming they're keeping Skubal. I think the idea that they're going to trade Skubal is something being pushed by beat writers from other teams that cover other teams. And then, you have Skubal, Flaherty's back, Casey Mize, Reese Olson, and possibly Troy Melton, possibly Drew Anderson, even Cater Montero might get a look, although I'm very much in favor of him being moving to the bullpen and kind of being like another Tyler Holton. But they might view it as they got to keep one of these guys, if they can keep Montero in Toledo, to have him for the spot start or move into the rotation with an injury. They might be thinking that as well. All right, so let's move on to the messiest situation of all, the Lions. It really is a mess. There's no way around that. First of all, for the doomsday, they're still very talented, but the injuries have played a factor in the struggles this season, particularly on defense. But I will say there were clear needs not addressed in the offseason. And Dan Campbell has this, I want to believe in my guys. I want to believe in our guys, that they can step up and take care of business. But I think there's got to be a fine balance between knowing when to trust the players you have and to say, no, this is a situation where we clearly need an upgrade. We need to add another player or two or this position, maybe we can take that leap of faith. This position, we can't afford it. And I think really, jumping around a bit here, that's on the offensive and defensive line, where they said, oh no, we're good with who we have. And I think that was a mistake. I think they needed another edge rusher. Because you've seen Al-Qadim Muhammad make some plays. But I really think they needed another guy on the defensive line, especially with some of the injuries that they had. They needed to really step that up. With Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch missing so much time, the secondary, I'm curious how much the corners struggled because they didn't have those safeties playing back there with them. I know maybe that doesn't make a difference. Maybe it does. Maybe it gives them more confidence or knowing where to be. But I think that's a swing and a miss. They did try to upgrade at corner, and I think depth-wise they're better. Like the third and fourth and fifth corners are better than last season, but the top end, I don't think there was market improvement. But again, lots of injuries there, so we don't know if what we're seeing is the full capacity of what the Lions had imagined. But still, I think that might need to be another area of an upgrade. But primarily, they got to get better on the line. They have very winnable games coming up. Steelers, Vikings, Bears. They're going to need the Bears to lose one of the next two of their games, and the Lions have to win out. If they go to play that in Chicago, they could be playing for the division. They really could. They're going to need help, which is not a situation you want to be in when you're relying on other teams to lose. The defense, if you go back and look, I was very... I praised the defense a lot for probably the first half of the season. They looked really, really good. They hadn't given up over 400 yards at all. And then in the last 4 weeks, they're giving up on average 453 yards per game and over 32 points per game over those last 4. So let's look at that. And that really started with that New York Giants game. Yeah, before that, it was the first 11 weeks, so the first 10 games, they hadn't given up more than 400 yards. Let's look at this real quick. The most they had given up was 355 to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then against the Giants, they gave up 517. They did hold Green Bay to 359, and then 417 to the Cowboys, and 519 to the Rams. So what's going on? I think the injuries. I think that Calvin Shepard, I still think he's really good at his job, but clearly you've seen some game plans change from some of these teams. And then, yeah, I think you've seen them change the game plans, and he hasn't quite adjusted. I think this is where you need that other pass rusher. You need another guy to make a play, because when you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, especially Stafford, Prescott, Love, and even gunslinger Jameis Winston, you really your defense is really going to struggle, because you're putting the secondary in a really tough position, especially with a weakened secondary. That pass rush has become even more important. And I think that what we're seeing is Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph and company really covered up some of the pass rush problems. Because now, all year we've been saying, the pass rush has been inconsistent, or most of the time not very good. But now that a lot of these guys have been out, you're starting to see, they were covering up, they were masking some problems. So I think that could be the source of the problem. But I think the media would like to talk a lot about, Jared Goff struggled. Jared Goff. I don't think he's the problem. Now, has he been elite or done anything unbelievable, like shocking? No. But again, it's not headline grabbing to talk about offensive and defensive line, but that's ultimately where the game of football is won. It always will be, even with the talented quarterbacks. Unless you have Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, you need an elite offensive line, and then either way, still defensively, you need a good defensive line. The window for this team is still very, very much open. With the amount of talent they have locked up, but they can't just ignore the offensive line and defensive line problems this offseason. They have to make some serious changes there, some upgrades. They can't just say, oh, we're going to do this in-house. And I'm not saying they got to make some big splashy move, because there's a far length between Marcus Davenport and, getting a Pro Bowl defensive end. There's a lot of area in between there with them for them to work. Now let's talk about the best thing going on in Detroit sports. Who would have thought a few years ago that this was the worst team maybe in the history of Detroit sports? They gave the Lions, the winless team, a run for their money for sure, setting that record of consecutive losses. And, this season they tied a franchise record for consecutive wins. After setting an NBA record for consecutive losses just 2 years ago. They're still first in the East, coming off a great game against the Celtics, which, by the way, I don't know why the media said, oh, well, Tatum's out, now the Celtics suck. I think that's the biggest kind of crap that sometimes the media tries to feed is, oh, one guy's out, therefore this team sucks. If that's the case, then that team was never very good. Boston is still very good. I think the Pistons are the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think that the Celtics are second. I don't know why there's this hype train on the Magic or, some of these other teams. I think that those two teams are probably at the top of the conference. And New York looks like they're also pretty good. So probably those three, maybe. I haven't watched Toronto. I'd like to see them play before I make any announcements about them. But those three, I think, are above the rest. And the thing that's really cool about how good they are is I don't even think they've reached their ceiling yet. You're still seeing some inconsistencies in defensive play sometimes, very rarely. That's almost gone now. But you're still seeing some shot selection issues, and they're getting better and better on both ends of the floor. You're seeing a lot of the sloppiness from years past. It'll creep in and then it'll go, and it's been fun to watch even through these first 20 plus games, 26 games, that they're slowly eliminating all these problems. I think the issue against the zone, a lot of people are going to say, oh, they need more three-point shooters or better three-point shooters. I think they've shown from time to time that you can break a zone without having to shoot a three. It helps to have Duncan Robinson out there for sure, but if you move the ball, when the Pistons move the ball, get some ball movement, make it so the defense can't just stand there and watch. They're getting better looks, even looks in the paint, mid-range shots, which I'm totally okay with because that's what they do against a man-to-man anyway. So I think that taking the bad, stagnant threes is something to watch, and that's an area that can improve. And I really think a few things. As long as we're on the positive, let's say Karis LeVert is really finding his niche, his niche with the team. Early on, it looked like he felt out of place. He looked out of place. And now you're seeing he comes in. He doesn't need to be a point guard. With Dennis Jenkins and Jaden Ivey playing now, Karis LeVert can go be a bucket getter. Get in the paint, get a bucket, get that mid-range, get to the hoop, get to the free throw line. Very, very talented at that. And that's his role on this team. Come off, get to the basket. Come off the bench, get to the basket. Jaden Ivey's continue to return to action level of play, that is what's going to take the Pistons from a really good team to a title contender. I really believe that they can elevate themselves to that Oklahoma City Thunder level when and if he can get back to the level of play that Ivey is capable of. We've seen the inconsistent shooting early on in the season, in his season. He's shooting 33% from the 3-point line. But, I mean, we've seen a 3-for-3 performance against Milwaukee, a 2-for-5 against Milwaukee, a 2-for-3 against Indiana. But we also saw a 1-for-7 and 0-for-2. And it's not, most of the time, he's had 2 games, both against Boston, and that's because they played that zone against the Pistons, where he shot a lot of threes, 0-for-5 and 1-for-7. It's not great. But I think that shot's going to come back as he gets his legs underneath him and gets used to the game speed. And it's happening slowly but surely. And I think some people are thinking, oh, he just missed the first 15 games of the season. He should be able to hop right back into this. The issue is, I think everybody seems... I can't believe that people have, but he did miss a long time with a very serious leg injury. So we're really seeing him kind of get back in from that and that secondary injury and being behind on cardio. So I think we'll see as the season progresses that he's really going to be a game changer for this Pistons team. And then I still believe Ausar Thompson is the Pistons' X factor. When he is playing confident, being very decisive with the basketball, making crisp passes, just taking his shot when it's there. When he's doing that, the Pistons are darn near unbeatable. They're very good, very good. When he plays that more passive, like, oh, I don't know what I should do. Should I dribble here? Should I pass it? I don't know. It really lowers the Pistons competitively. And I think that was clear against Boston recently, last night. And that was made clear because I think the Celtics really went after him to try and put him in those positions to make those decisions a lot. And when he's hesitant, I don't want to say he's not very good, but he's not. It changes, and it's something as simple as that of being confident versus being passive. And I think the best Ausar Thompson is an aggressive Ausar Thompson. So I'm going to check out his games recently. Yeah, and a lot of this too is going to be like eye test. I know that people like to just look at box scores and judge the game, but both Ivey and Thompson have played huge roles in recent games, despite what the box score might say. The 1-for-7 last night, I think that was a confidence thing for Thompson against the Celtics, from the free throw line, that is. A couple of turnovers, holding the ball to the end of the shot clock. I think we saw in that game that he was being, very indecisive. And I'm kind of rambling a bit here, but it really is when he's aggressive and goes to the basket and makes a decision and makes a pass, he makes the Pistons so much better. I can't state it enough. I wish I had other words to put it in. All right, so let's wrap up with talking about the Red Wings, who somehow managed to, with the way the Eastern Conference is this year, they one day they're out of the playoffs and then they win a couple in a row and they're at the top, and then they have a day off and they fall a couple seeds. This playoff race is going to be very, very interesting. Yeah, right now they're second in their division. And they have a game coming up tonight. And who are they playing tonight? The Islanders. Okay. So, with the Red Wings, I think one of their issues is going to be they're very top heavy. And you've gotten really good play from Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond, and Kane on the top part of their lineup. And the Kane injury is going to hurt, even though he's missing just a few games. I think we've seen with injuries at his age, it slows him down even for the first few that he comes back. Because it felt like we finally got Patrick Kane back. Now he's hurt again. But this team is really, their ceiling, whether or not they're able to keep this up, is going to be determined by the younger players stepping up and their ability to develop in season. Casper, Danielson, Axel Sandin, Pelika, etc. If the youth is able to, and even Emmett Finney, that's wild that I forgot him, but he feels like part of the other group already, which is for a 7th round pick. That's insane that he feels you feel the most confident with him out there. But all those players, their development and their ability to take it up a notch and develop, make less mistakes, play with more confidence, that's what's going to determine the Red Wings making the playoffs or not, or how far they can get in the standings, how long they can keep up competing in the division. But then additionally, a big change recently, because they have not played like fantastic, super clean hockey every game. But John Gibson, who started the year off where it looked like, oh my gosh, this is not working out very well, that trade, he has been on absolute fire lately. He's 5-0 in December with a .940 save percentage and 2 shutouts in that span. And it looked like he was going to have another one, but that just kind of fell apart in Calgary with a couple of really bad mistakes from the Red Wings letting them back into that game. But, 5-0, .940, this is looking like what the Red Wings went out to trade for. This is who they wanted. This is what they've been missing the last several years. A goaltender that can really help win a game, steal some games. And him getting back into form can allow Talbot to play a little less and him get back into form too, because he's struggled a little bit as of late. The last several years, December has been an absolute disaster for the Red Wings. And suddenly, they're playing pretty well in December, which makes me think maybe we get to January and February when they have historically gotten pretty hot and gone on some big win streaks. Maybe then suddenly, instead of getting back into the playoff conversation, then they're launching themselves into solidifying that spot, so that when March rolls around and they lose every game, terrible. But maybe even that with Todd McClellan coaching, maybe that March disaster, like this December disaster in recent years, you have 2 horrible months in the season, which is what's keeping them out of the playoffs. Maybe if you turn those into pluses or even just playing even, suddenly they're a playoff team. So, and there's never been a better year to try and make that jump back into the playoffs with how even everybody seems to be this season. And, the other thing was Jonathan Berggren, gone, placed on waivers, picked up by St. Louis. I guess it's maybe better for him. He didn't really seem to fit what the Red Wings were doing this year. Soderblom kind of took that last role away from him, and he's been playing really well, using his size to his advantage. Berggren just didn't have one thing that really stood out. So I think that's kind of what did it in the end. He's a more offensive player, and Soderblom was like that too, but he kind of committed to, I'm going to win puck battles and use my size, and that's a niche that he's been able to carve out to stay in the lineup. And that's the difference. At the pro level, that having one thing you're really good at makes a big difference. So, that is it. We'll see how the Pistons and the Red Wings keep up over the next week. And the Lions have pretty much the season on the line every week the rest of the way. and we'll see how that goes. And Tigers offseason continues apace, so lots to keep up with. This has been the Detroit Way. See you next week.